Burundi has adopted a bill which authorizes security forces to carry out night raids even without a search warrant from a magistrate. The draft law changing the criminal code was passed on Wednesday, and after 8 hours of deliberation, it was adopted with 90 votes in favor and 22 against. A section of opposition members and the civil society believe that the passing of the bill is an attack to Burundi's democracy. But according to Justice Minister Aimé Laurentine, who presented the bill in Parliament, it was necessary to introduce new rules in light of the evolution of criminal activities in Burundi in the past few years.
Aimé Laurentine Kanyana, who also indicated that the bill has allowed law enforcement to conduct multiple searches on entire neighborhood and give them right to search computer systems. So obviously the bill caused an outcry from the opposition deputies of the coalition of the independents. Emizero Ya Rundi had voted against this bill contrary to the constitution.
Contre ce projet de loi contraire à la constitution selon leurs termes.
Justine Dubi is a Burundi specialist for the International Federation for Human Rights. She joins us from Paris. It's great to have you in the program, Madame Justine. So the first question that we have for you, Burundi's National Assembly passed this draft law that changes the criminal code and that allows security forces to conduct overnight searches without a search warrant. Well, some say, as I earlier mentioned, that this is an attack on Burundi's democracy. But what is the position of human rights organizations like yours on this issue?
Indeed, the Burundian National Assembly adopted on April 18 a draft reform of the Criminal Procedure Code that would allow security forces to conduct multiple search at night and without warrant, and that would increase the state's prerogatives in terms of cyber surveillance in particular. Such measures are normally governed by precise rules and are carried out under the control of a judicial police officer or a judge. And it's precisely these safeguards that the Burundian government is seeking to put to good use. The amendment of the Criminal Procedure Code is in fact intended to deregulate the practices of the Burundian security forces, but in fact these security services are already conducting this type of operation outside any legal framework. It is therefore clear that a new code of criminal procedure, which will be reformed 1 month before the referendum, will be an additional tool to massively monitor Burundians, intimidate the population, incite them to vote yes for this revision, which will allow the president to remain in power or punish Burundians who do not support these projects of the authorities.
And while presenting this controversial bill in Parliament, Burundi's Justice Minister said that the crime rate in the country has increased over the past few years and that it was necessary to have new rules. What's your take on that?
The argument of the Minister of Justice is that Burundi is in a state of emergency, which justifies the taking for the special measures. I would remind you that this is the rhetoric use of authorities since the beginning of the crisis to legalize the use of violence. As you may know, moderate political opponents of members of the civil society and human rights defenders are regularly described as armed insurgents and rebels by the Burundian authorities. But this is largely misleading propaganda, and so I would like to say that the main threat to peace and security in Burundi today comes from Burundian state and from those who are supposed to protect Burundians. Numerous reports have shown that the majority of violations in the country are committed by government forces against civilians, although it's true that armed groups have also committed abuses.
And this new measure comes in a climate of tension, generally a political crisis in Burundi, which we are definitely aware of. But can we say that after several months, the different mediation teams or the mediation attempts that have been made in Burundi have not allowed the parties involved to find solutions in ending the crisis?
Indeed, the situation isn't clear in Burundi. African states in the region have sought to initiate a dialogue between authorities and the independent political opposition, the majority of whom have fled the country and are in exile. So far, these mediation attempts have ended in repeated failure, in particular because the authorities have either boycotted negotiations or refused to negotiate directly with the opposition, whereas it is precisely the aim of the talks. To find a lasting political solution to this crisis, which is above all political. And so the situation is largely bogged down because the Burundian authorities' strategy is to avoid dialogue in order to maintain its facto power. But the responsibility also lies with the state in the region, which is not putting enough pressure on the Burundian government to force it to negotiate and have peace.